Beloved, I appreciate you joining me on the Healing Stream Reflection. The title for today's post is The Scapegoat, Bearing the Burden of Sin. The prophet Isaiah declared in Isaiah 53 verse 4, "Surely he had borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted." William Homer's Hans, The Scapegoat, has long been my favorite pre-Raphaelite painting. I think of it often during Passion Week, perhaps because it's such a powerful image of Jesus' sacrifices. Surrounded by wasteland and the salt-encrusted Dead Sea, the great times utterly exhausted and bogged down by a weight obviously heavier than the laden atmosphere alone. His legs might give way any moment, but he braces them to stand under his burden. His mouth is open as if painting. He's desperately thirsty, but it's his eyes looking straight at me that say the most. Though he set his face like flint, he's utterly forsaken. Isaiah 57. No one will be more abandoned and alone than he is in that wasteland. He carries the fullness of the world on his back. Is the scapegoat who is first introduced to the Israelites in Leviticus 16 as a part of the Old Covenant. Yahweh's detailed instructions for the Day of Atonement further expand on the already familiar Passover lamb concept. This atonement ritual required two flawless goats, one to be slaughtered and one to be the scapegoat. In Hebrew, scapegoat is Azazel, which literally means goat of removal. After the high priest slaughtered the first goat as a sin offering and sprinkled its blood on the mercy seat covering the Ark of the Covenant, he was to lay his hands on the head of the living goat and confess over it all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites, all their sins, and put them on the goat head. Leviticus 16:1. Then the goat was sent into the desert to carry away the sins of the people. Not only was the shedding of innocent blood required for atonement, someone without flaw was needed to take unto himself all guilt of the people and carry it away. Like the sacrificial lamb of goat slaughtered as a sin offering, Jesus had to die a very real, very physical, very painful death. In order to pay for our sin, it wasn't going to be enough for him to simply close his eyes and experience spiritual torment on our behalf. Fully human, as the second Adam, Jesus suffered an excruciating human death. But that wasn't the whole of his sacrifice. Also fully God, Jesus did what no other human could do. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Isaiah 53:6. One Friday years ago, I remember watching crucifixion slides from the 1977 film Jesus of Nazareth. My friends were so moved by these images that they said, if Jesus' suffering doesn't bring tears to your eyes, you might need to ask yourself if you really understand what he went through for us. Though I was touched by Jesus dying a bloody and painful death for me, I wasn't crying. I tried my best to work up some tears, but it just wasn't happening. I found myself praying, God, I know this sounds bad, but haven't lots of people died really horrible deaths deaths before. Since then, I've heard many gruesome descriptions of crucifixions meant to show how much Jesus endured for our sin. And the same childhood thoughts go through my head. There's got to be more. I can't help being moved by the knowledge that Jesus bore our tangible afflictions. We can never accuse him of not understanding our pain. But there's so much more to his sacrifice. It was more than the brutal suffering that we saw a glimpse of in the movie The Passion of the Christ. It had as much, if not more, to do with one of the movie's final scenes. Right after Jesus gives up his spirit and dies, saying, "It is finished." As the witnesses around the cross stand grief-stricken, another scene plays out somewhere and not visible to their human eyes. The evil one who once prowled the earth with self-assurance writhed on his knees, shaking in defeat. The Savior's passion is about a war that reached its climax in the heavenly realms. It's about Jesus taking on himself all the sin and evil of the fallen world so that he might conquer it. As he suffered silently, he simultaneously bared his fist. His strength was in both his relinquishment and the power of his attack on the forces of darkness. The visible story witnessed by people like us was of grand scale. Betrayal and forgiveness, hatred and grace, violence and sacrifice. Even in his death, Jesus changed lives. Marcus, whose ear was healed, Pilate, whose confidence was shaken, Simon of Cyrene, who walked Jesus' last steps with him, the thief, whose humility and courage were blessed by the lips of the Holy One himself, the centurion, who, spear in hand, felt like pierce his duty-bound spirit. But as the visible story focused on the man willingly going to his death, in the broader story, the same man raced toward his foe, the tormentor of his beloved, and engaged in terrible earth-shaking battle. He fought with his whole being, willing to sacrifice all of himself. As 2 Corinthians chapter 5:21 says, Jesus became sin so that we, you and I, in exchange, might miraculously become the righteousness of God. He who had no sin became sin. In this exchange lies the crux of the mystery. Jesus wasn't just the unique God-man whose physical death on the cross took away the curse of spiritual death. He was one with the great I Am before time existed. John 1, verses 1 to 2. And yet, as he bore humanity's sin, he chose to be separated from this very oneness so that we might be unified with God. No one could have understood the unfathomable depth of what was happening when Jesus screamed out in anguish, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. But in that anguish was our healing. Jesus became not only the sacrificial lamb, but also the scapegoat, the curse bearer, who fulfilled the whole law and destroyed that power, making our spiritual freedom real and complete, just as Galatians chapter 3, verse 13 informs us. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. Isaiah 53:5. So when you contemplate Christ's body broken and torn for you, and Christ's blood poured out for you, also contemplate what he carried into the desert for you. Human minds can't fully comprehend Jesus' spiritual death for our sake, but we can begin to understand what love truly is when we consider the pain of what we've both experienced and inflicted: betrayal, abandonment, hatred, mockery, violation, despair. When the suffering and evil in the world lead us to ask how a loving, just God could allow such things, we must gaze intently into the eyes of the scapegoat, who looks straight at us with love and see the weight of what he carried away for our sake into the desert. God richly bless you, and thanks for listening.